Success? Oh, hi. Glad you're here. I'm glad to be with you. I just wanted to talk about my Comic Con experience real quick. It was great. I didn't get to go to last year's Comic Con, my local Comic Con, not like San Diego Comic Con. Couldn't afford it last year, so we've only missed two since they've been doing it in my city. Ironically enough, both of those had appearances of William Shatner. So I blame Shatner. Anyway, but my son was gifted for his birthday tickets to this year's Comic Con, so we were able to at least go. I just had to scrounge up some money to meet a few celebrities that I really wanted to meet, which I did. Not all of them. I never can afford all of them. Like Ernie Hudson, for example, was at my Comic Con this year, but he was only going to be there Saturday, Sunday. We only go on Friday. Friday's the least busy day, and I work on the weekends, so it's the only way where I'm not, costing myself more money. So we were just going Friday, but then like last minute they added him to Friday, and I was like, sweet, let's meet him. Way too expensive. He was like $80 for an autograph, and then like an extra $20 if you wanted to get it personalized. I'm like, that's insane. Anyway, but when we got there, we were walking around like right after they opened, and we went like down some hallway which happened to be where they were letting these celebrities in like at that moment. I'm going down this hallway, and all of a sudden I lock eyes with David Yost, my favorite Power Ranger. And I was like, "Oh my god." And it's funny because he saw the look in my face, and he smiled because he knew that I was excited to recognize him. But I had already met him. My son and I had already met him at another one of these a few years ago. But it was just cool to see him. And then the next thing I know, I turned my head, and right there in my face, walking by, 2 inches away from me, was Ernie freaking Hudson. I was like, it's Winston. Just walked right by me. So that was exciting enough, close enough, even though we had just watched Leviathan the night before in anticipation to meet him. But I didn't get to meet him, but to have that surreal experience, good enough for me. But anyway, before we went to Comic Con, it was like a week prior, I was able to actually do something I've never done in my life. We were able to afford our Halloween costumes in August. So right after Spirit opens up, we went to check it out. My son really wanted to be Deadpool. Surprise, surprise. And I really wanted to be Wolverine. But the thing was, we couldn't find any, obviously with the popularity of Deadpool and Wolverine, we weren't going to find any costumes for that. And I'm pretty sure they don't even really make kids Deadpool costumes. I mean, sure, maybe somebody does, but not very common to get a kid Deadpool. And you definitely weren't going to find one at like a Spirit. So when we were there, all of a sudden, just lying there on the shelf there was one Wolverine costume. And it was the Wolverine costume that I wanted last year but couldn't afford. Specifically, X-Men 97 Wolverine. That was my jam when I was a kid in 96. Loved X-Men. Loved the animated series. Love 97 when it came back. So I wanted that specific Wolverine, so I was like, oh, well, I'm good. I got mine. Sorry, bud, that they don't have a Deadpool. But as we continued to look, he found himself very excited to find a Peely costume from Fortnite. So we got him Peely, and we got him a little gun, and we got him the big thing that Peely uses, his pickaxe, I guess. But it's like a stick and a big banana. Big banana. Anyway, so we had our costumes. So my son was like, we got to wear these to Comic Con. I was like, why not? I've never dressed up for Comic Con. Sounds like fun. So I was Wolverine, and he was Peely. If you know, you know, which a lot of people did. But essentially, our combined costume was Peelverine. My son's idea, by the way. Anyway. So we catch the bus to go to Comic-Con. While we're waiting for the bus, we have old guy talking to us at the bus stop. Didn't understand why we were dressed up. We had cars driving by nonstop. Beep beep. Oh hey, oh Wolverine. Oh hey, Peely. Oh my God. Oh. It's crazy the attention you get when you're dressed up on a random day waiting for the bus. Anyway, so we ride the bus. Here I am dressed as Wolverine, and sitting next to me is a giant banana. Because his costume, covers him up. Like he's a banana. He could unzip it and poke his head out when he needed to, but for the most part, he was just a banana. There was an old man on the bus talking to us for a long time. Couldn't understand a word he said. He said he was 96 years old and he was from some other country, but he kept thinking that was my daughter. Anyway, so we get to Comic-Con, and the celebrities that I did get a chance to meet that were like must. First thing we do, and we were getting all kinds of comments about our costumes. People loved. At one point, this nice older lady starts talking to my son, telling him how cool his costume is. And it was Brett frickin' Butler. Brett Butler starts telling my son how amazing, and I'm like if I was rich, I would have met her too. They also had Lee Majors and what's her face, the Bionic Woman. I would have loved to have met them, but again, I couldn't afford it. But I would have met Brett. I used to love Brett Butler's sitcom when I was younger. And here I am interacting with Brett Butler while she's complimenting my son. I was like, this is crazy. Anyway, so the first thing we did, we had to meet Roger L. Jackson. If you don't know that name, Roger L. Jackson is a voiceover actor. And he is famous for the voice of Ghostface in every single Scream movie. Obsessed, okay? I was so excited. But he also does the voice of Mojo Jojo in the Powerpuff Girls. So my son and I went up to meet this guy, and holy cow, nicest freaking guy in the world. He asks us our names. He introduces us to his wife. He tells us how this is his first time in Colorado. Like, he was the nicest guy. So I start geeking out about Ghostface. And he starts doing the Ghostface voice. And he's like, oh, what's your movie? Like, scary movie? Like, he said my name and my son's name as Ghostface. And I'm like, this is freaking awesome. He was doing his pens. Because I had him autograph something. And he was like, oh, what color should I do? And I was like, whatever you think is best, dude. He's like, I'm thinking blood red. And I'm like, great. But he's like, my markers aren't working. And he had a photo of Sydney, of Nev Campbell, that he would use when his markers weren't working. And I was like, yeah, destroy Sydney. He's like, yeah, destroy Sydney. And it was great. It was great. He had a little mustache on her and everything. Oh, so that was great. And then I bring up Mojo and how we just watched the Powerpuff Girls movie. And how my favorite episode is the episode that's just like a day in the life of Mojo, and he's making breakfast, and he's like, curses. And for a second, I caught myself doing the Mojo voice in front of Mojo himself. I'm like, what am I doing? And then he quotes the episode. Oh, I need 2 eggs for the proper nutrition, and I only have 1. Curses. And he goes, that's my favorite episode, too. I was like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. And then he starts doing the Mojo voice for Flynn, and he uses my son's name. And my son later said, I am now going to only pronounce my name Flynn, because that's how Mojo said it. Flynn. So it was just such a surreal experience. He was the nicest freaking guy in the world. And as I was gushing about what fans we were, you could see the genuine appreciation in him. And he was like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. So that was the highlight. And that was the literal first thing we did. Because when you go on a Friday, it's not busy. And as soon as they open, everybody's wandering around. They don't know what they're doing. So if you go up to the celebrities immediately, nobody's going to be there. There's no lines. So I just got to walk up to Roger L. Jackson and have this great, because nobody else is waiting, had this great interaction with him. It was, So we're walking away. I'm like high on life, cloud 9. Like, okay, that was the highlight of our Comic-Con. And we'd been there for 5 minutes. But I had him sign this, which makes this like so much more special now. This has now been signed by Matthew Lillard, Skeet Ulrich, and Roger L. Jackson, Ghostface. Okay, you got Matthew Lillard, Stu Macher, you got Skeet Ulrich, Billy Loomis, and frickin' Roger L. Jackson, Ghostface, and his idea to do Blood Red, and I think it looks fantastic. This is signed by all three killers from the original Scream. One of my most prized possessions. So that was surreal, that I've met all three of them now. Oh, what a great experience. So then, the other two that we wanted to meet, we had fun walking around, interacting with people pointing out, it's Peely, or Peelverine, it's Peelverine, it's Peelverine. They loved it. There were some other people dressed as Wolverine, and they were excited. We'd take pictures together, and every time a Deadpool was around, him and I would have some great interaction, and everyone around would insist that we'd fight or something, or it was fun to be Wolverine and to see Deadpools, and yeah, it was a blast. I love my local Comic Con. It's been a great experience every time. So on top of all that, I wanted to meet very specifically Gary Anthony Williams. I was very excited that he was there. Gary Anthony Williams, to most people, might know him at the second live action Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movie, Out of the Shadows, I believe. He played Bebop. And I loved him as Bebop. But I was most excited that he was Bebop because I was already familiar with him. He's done many, many voiceover work too. I mean, everything from Rick and Morty to you name it. Look him up. He's done all kinds of amazing things. But what I knew him from is when I grew up, I would watch Whose Line Is It Anyway with my dad, the British one. And then when I was married, I would watch the Drew Carey Whose Line Is It Anyway with my wife at the time. And then the third iteration of Whose Line Is It Anyway with Aisha Tyler, I would watch with my son. And one of the common guests, if you will, performers on that show was Gary Anthony Williams. So I wanted to meet him very much. He was on Whose Line Is It Anyway? He's hilarious. Look it up. He's fantastic. I believe it's on the CW. So we met him. He was the nicest guy in the world. And then that's when I discovered that for cheaper than the price of an autograph, I could get a selfie. And I've learned throughout the years that a picture with someone I wanted to meet is way more valuable than a piece of paper that has their signature on it. It just is. If I can afford both, absolutely I'll get both. But if I can only afford one, I mean, this I needed to add to the, obviously. But the other two, I just got selfies, because, So I got a selfie with him. He was fantastic. Like, make sure we look good. He had the lady take a bunch of pictures to make sure that one of them at least was perfect. And that was surreal. Told us that he got into acting by accident because when in class there was a computer glitch that put him in drama. And because of a computer glitch, now here he is, this big, nicest guy in the world. Oh, it was so great. The way he interacted with Flynn and me. Oh, such a sweetheart. He said, oh, you like, we brought up Bebop. He said, oh, you like Bebop? And he looks at my son. He goes, you like Bebop? Gives him a free picture of Bebop. So now we don't just have, we might not have his autograph on it, but we have a gift from him. Wonderful. And then we had to wait for Rufio to come back. That was the other one I wanted to meet after having just discovered But I'm a Cheerleader. And when I saw Hook as a kid, that was the first movie that I remember, coming home from the theater and jumping off the couch trying to fly. Like, that was the first time I experienced, like, movies are magic. Movies can really open up your imagination. But he had left after he was first there, and then it said he'd be back at 2, so we're waiting and we're waiting and we're waiting. And then I got the vibe that he was very much like Jason David Frank, who refused to come out until he had enough of a crowd waiting. So when he realized that there was a few people waiting for him, he finally came out, and I got to meet what's his name? Oh, right, sorry, excuse me. Dante Bosco, who played Rufio in Hook. He's also been in other things, including But I'm a Cheerleader, and I got to let him know how I just discovered that movie, and it's freaking brilliant, and he was very nice about that. brought up Hook, and he just reminisced about what an amazing, the sets, working with Spielberg and, of course, Robin, and just what an amazing experience that was for him. I'm sure he's probably sick of hearing Rufio. Even the guy behind me in line was talking about how I just so badly want to be like Rufio, but he's probably sick of hearing that for the last 30 years. I'm like, yeah. But he was very nice. We got to take a picture with him. So that's probably the thumbnail picture. I would go with Gary Anthony Williams, but nobody knows who that is. But you should. Watch Whose Line Is It Anyway? But meeting Rufio was really cool. But Roger L. Jackson was definitely the highlight. I wish I could have had a recording of him doing Ghostface and Mojo for us. But the fact that he did those voices for us. Because that's not something we're going to ask him to do, obviously. But he openly did it, and it was, to hear Ghostface say my name, and Mojo say my son's name. It was awesome. So I had a great Comic-Con. My son had a great Comic-Con. And then on the way back, we had to take the bus. But other people had to take the bus. Next thing I knew, we're on a bus, seeing people's faces when they get on this bus. Wolverine, sitting next to a banana. Right in front of him, there's Deadpool. And then in front of him, there's a wizard and some other lady. Craziest bus anybody's ever been on. Good times. Bangarang. Okie dokie.